Hello, my name is Georgios Tsakos and I'm a professor of dental public health at UCL in London, and also the chair of the Platform for Better Oral Health in Europe, an umbrella organization that lobbies European organizations about the importance of oral health. And ACFF, we are proud that ACFF is one of our associate members. Today, I'm going to speak to you a little bit about the ACFF Dental Policy Lab Network, a very interesting development, and see how we can all contribute to how this is linked very much to the World Health Organization Global Oral Health Strategy. So I will present an overview of that. But let's start from the history of the policy labs, and you see there on the slide, and many of you have been actively involved in the labs. There have been 3 of them. The first one in 2017, in essence, put the whole question of cavity-free future, and the following ones went in some of these aspects in more depth. The second one in 2019 was towards paying for health in dentistry, and the third one focused more, which is in 2020, focused more on behaviors and partnerships with industry. For me, the key unifying word about all these 3 labs is the word towards, because it is unifying because it gives a direction and the dynamic nature of the labs, which is a very interesting endeavor, if I may say so, because it brings key senior stakeholders from around the world and different stakeholders, policymakers, researchers, academics, clinicians, chief dental officers, even NGOs, thinking about how turning evidence into action. So taking the knowledge and say, okay, we have some of that, how can we make a positive change forward? Putting this into context, though, one has to think not just about, of course, these policy labs are about caries and cavities. It's about cavity-free future and how we deal with the problem of the major issue of dental caries. But it would be a mistake to view it isolated and without the wider context. It's not just even the oral health context. You see there caries can relate and push and support oral health, but it's the broader, the wider determinants context and the broader non-communicable diseases context that it makes it very, very relevant. And one has to view caries in this broader framework. As a matter of fact, it's the most prevalent NCD globally. And it very much fits the wider determinants agenda, the wider social and environmental determinants agenda. And if you think about the common risk factor approach, this work around caries and oral health actually contributes to many other agendas and other conditions. So the idea of a network of policy labs is not just to be seen in isolation, but actually think very carefully of what the context and how this can multiply the effect we can have in bringing positive change, not just for caries, but for health in general. But you are familiar with the policy labs, and where have they led to? What's the follow-up? And I will try to do this as with all the slides, sort of presenting them from my perspective. So I won't go in very great details and trying not to repeat what you already know very well. But there has been 4 priority actions from the first lab, and they've been sort of from the labs, and they've been moved forward through the years. I will just stay a little bit on the first one on your left, because I think it's a really interesting development. If you think where the dialogue was back a few years back, it was just almost devoid of what value-based care means. And I think among other sort of similar developments, the first policy lab and the Health Economics Consortium that ACFF did after that has helped focus a lot around value-based healthcare. I also find very interesting the developments, sort of the blueprint for dental payment systems, and particularly the very interesting application, practical application that we see now happening in France. And it can be probably a good example for others to modify and follow and learn from the positives and also learn from the challenges. There have been also issues around sort of informed the education development, but mostly it's about influencing policy. So it's not just a policy lab happens and nothing happens after. It sort of generates interesting developments and moves the agenda forward. So there is, in my view, quite a lot of value in them. And of course, everyone is familiar now with the very recently published ACFF Global Consensus publication in terms of achieving a dental cavity-free future, because it put it in the wider policy agenda, if you like. It is a document that came as a follow-up, as an extension of the 3 dental policy labs. And it came up at a very, very interesting timing, because there is a momentum now. It fits very well with the World Health Assembly resolution and all what comes forward from this, because it's very well placed into shifting towards prevention and primary care. But what do I mean by momentum? And you see here a slide from the very recent World Health Assembly resolution that was voted this year. And well, this is a momentum by itself. The timing is of essence, but one has to think a little bit where we were. That's the first time in almost 15 years that oral health has featured in the World Health Organization agenda, sort of in a more prominent role. And it's not just that, it's also that this World Health Assembly resolution and the global oral health strategy that has followed as a draft form, and many organizations have put comments, and that will be finalized early next year, and then it will be an action plan following from this. So there is something that actually says countries will need to follow seriously about the issues of oral health, and have a 10-year plan where every year they sort of monitor the progress towards a plan. So it is something that brings policy into oral health into the forefront, but the guiding principles, the resolution and the global oral health strategy themselves are actually very much forward-looking. It's a very welcome document, and if I may say so, quite more advanced than previous mentions of oral health at that level. It's firmly focused on prevention and primary care, brings a strong public health focus on it, tries to unify everything under the universal health coverage principle. So it brings the issue of inequalities also at the heart of the policy, and puts it in the wider agenda, in the determinants agenda that governs the whole of the non-communicable diseases. Interestingly, at the same time that we have this WHO resolution and strategy, there's another resolution, a sister resolution, if you like, or a brother resolution, call it as you like, from the WHO on inequalities. So you can see that it is not just a tokenistic approach towards oral health. It's actually putting oral health in the context, and you see all the relevant developments in WHO looking at this more forward sort of positioned agenda, thinking about prevention and public health approach to dealing with NCDs in a wider determinants framework. All that sounds very good, and that's the easiest slide you can find actually to discuss what is happening, because it is very challenging to put this into action, and we need all hands on deck, and we need actually contributions from anyone that can provide contribution. It is very challenging, but it's very important. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that we get the WHO very much interested in oral health and with a forward-looking agenda. So it's an opportunity we shouldn't miss. And the ACFF Dental Policy Lab Network can be seen as a vehicle, in my view, to help facilitate and drive forward and support such a change. In different countries and different contexts, policies around caries would have to be driven forward. And we don't start from a blank page. We start from the 3 dental policy labs. We have the priority actions. We have the consensus, the global consensus sort of document. That's the background, but we also have the network that we now create. And the links through the Dental Policy Lab network can help multiply the combined effort that I would like us to put and maximize the impact we would have. So suddenly we have almost a perfect storm situation where many things concur towards bringing positive change. And the dental policy network will have three main objectives. They are conceptually different, but at the same time, they're so much interlinked. So in my view, and you're familiar already with them, I suspect, but when we think about value, I think more about advocacy and policy. When we think about the toolkit, it's a more practical way to help that because it gives methods and resources to not direct, but help be a sort of a first draft, if you like, or a draft that can be used to make positive change. And when you think about exemplar countries, I think that's actually very important, although it sounds just an example. It isn't this, because it is best practices, is learning from one another. What has gone well in one setting may not go well in another setting, but the learning is very, very valuable for everyone. Okay, there's a lot happening. What's the role of the chapters? And where do the chapters fit in this? I would say they fit everywhere. And if I'm more specific, actually they fit at the heart of the whole effort. CARIS-related work could and should be led by the chapters as they understand the context and they're best placed to deliver within that context. So the chapters do not have a role to play. Oh, could we just be an exemplar country? Yes, by all means. Give that information and help shared learning and best practices. But they have a role to play in all three pillars of work. And a very important role, because the broader sort of aspects may not equally work across, and we might have to sort of tailor. The chapters might have to tailor things and change things. So they use the concepts to move the agenda forward. So this is just some ideas of what the chapters can do. I think there can be many, many more things that can happen, and the whole endeavor has to be flexible. So, for example, in terms of what they can help design the overall vision for bringing in the cavity future, targeting the country into reality. They can provide options for change, think about what we have learned from past initiatives, from past mistakes as well. Sometimes the learning from the mistakes is more important than the learning from the successes. And there aren't mistakes, there are only mistakes in hindsight. People always start with the best intentions and try to do something that works well. We learn in the process. And I think that's what is going to happen big time now that we have the WHO resolution and global strategy that will bring many of those efforts at the forefront. And it's an excellent sort of opportunity to learn from one another and learn from our mistakes as well. So the progress comes faster. And I think they will provide a lot of the evidence behind. Remember, WHO is a global organization. Who will deliver that? The countries, the members of WHO. So the chapters are very well placed to be the evidence resource to support the countries in making the correct choices. So in essence, what this presentation is about is really a call to action on how things can be done much better. What can the network and the toolkit do in that respect? I think the network, the Dental Policy Lab network, is really well placed to add value to the toolkit, because it will bring, as you can see here, the know-how from the exemplar countries and the evidence globally. And these are just some ideas of what the network can contribute to the toolkit and how can the toolkit help implementation in the countries. So it is a partnership of chapters and the wider Dental Policy Lab network. So finishing this presentation, I would like to think a little bit of the key principles and benefits of being part of the network. And I can read them, and if I read them one by one, you will think that all of them are actually very much common sense. So, for example, focus on where the energy and possibility for progress is. Well, you can't disagree with that, really. Develop and provide access to evidence, tools, and resources. Yes, that's what the network is about. And sharing and learning as we go, etc., etc. They are very much common sense, but common sense is not as common as we think. And if I select one of them to speak about, for me, is the safe space idea, because it is bringing together the different stakeholders in a safe space to exchange views and see the opportunities for change as they arrive and as they can be designed in terms of caries preventive policies and how they link with a broader agenda. So I would say that the ways of working are equally important, and thinking about the principles and benefits of participation in the lab, it is about bringing every important stakeholder together into a call for action through maximizing the importance of the global oral health strategy and action plan that WHO will produce to bring forward a better sort of oral health for populations across the globe, being flexible enough into the activities we do, and making sure we are thinking about the broader NCDs agenda and the broader determinants agenda in that. In my view, this is a very important journey to embark on, but also a very nice one. And I hope that we will work together in the coming years to make this a reality. Thank you very much.